All right, this is JPEG to RAW photo review, show number 28. And we're now made it to the April images. We're going to split them in half so we don't go over your image tonight. Next show we'll may go over your images, but tonight we're going to go over the first half of the images. If you want to enter, there's still, June just started, so there's plenty of time to enter for June. You can go over to jpeg2raw.com/contest, and you can enter our regular group or our beginner group, either one that you feel more comfortable in, through our website. There's a link right there, or right below it, there's also a link to both of those Facebook groups where you can enter through those. And that's how most people are going to enter, through the Facebook group. The album to enter in is right there at the top of each group, although I got to add them for this month, but they're right there. And the theme for June is going to be open again. We're going to do another open theme. And AD, I don't know if you know this, but we had a new person enter in May. So we're not going to go over the image tonight or next show, but a person that has made most of our live shows. We've talked about the person entering. That person entered for May. So I can't wait till we get to the May images. Any guess on that, who that is?
Nope.
Jan. Jan entered. All right.
I was gonna make like I didn't know who it was, but all right.
And Jan is out in chat, and she reminded me to record. I've been recording the whole time, so we're good.
We're good. That's good. So you know what's really funny about the whole technical difficulties thing is I literally spent 3 hours recording before we got on Skype to do this. 3 hours of recording, not a single problem, not a single hitch, nothing. So It makes me wonder if it's Skype or what it is.
Yeah, I hate those where you have trouble tracking them down. And all of us who do podcasting, photography, some way or another, you're dealing with technology, and there's always something out there. It just doesn't run smooth forever.
It's weird.
Yeah. All right. So tonight we're going to go over the April images, and let me get the first ones up. The first one from where are we? First one from the beginners group is this one here from Nancy Smith, and Nancy says, my gardening helper of her, I had it. What kind of dog is this? It's a spaniel, but I can't remember the brand. And I had this exact dog.
Springer?
I love this. Springer Spaniel, yes. It's a Springer Spaniel. Great dogs. Love this dog. So,
very energetic.
Very energetic, yes.
Yeah. I like the image. Nancy, obviously, she's listening to when we talk about composition and stuff, and where to put the subject in the frame, and she has the dog more into the thirds a little bit. For a standard cropped image, the dog is still a little too centered up for composition wise. But I mean, essentially, if we're just taking pictures of our helpers and whatnot, it's in focus and it's well done. I like the kind of look. The look on the dog's face is kind of like, you taking my picture? Taking my picture?
AD, I used to always I was always anti-crop. Not that I didn't want you to crop or somebody else to crop. It's just from when I was shooting so much sports and we're shooting with 4 megapixel cameras, we just didn't crop that much. So I've had this ingrained in me to not crop. But when I went and shot the Balloon Festival, which we were looking at earlier in a pre-show, you try and get it as good as you could in the shot, but then inevitably things are going to be, like you said, leaning toward one way or not where they need to be. And I felt a new freedom of cropping when I was going through those images. Now, I don't know if I did them right. I went through them fast enough so you couldn't really critique me. But I felt freedom from listening to you that I can crop these things. And when you're cropping them in Lightroom, and I'm sure in other tools too, they give you the bars so you can do that. If you didn't get it quite right and taking a shot, you can do that cropping and get them into the thirds where you want them and find something like a lot of those balloons were leaning, but there were buildings in the background that I knew parts of that building were more than likely supposed to be straight. So I can use that as my point to make it level. So a lot of that stuff I was able to do in post, and that's I don't know if Nancy did that here or whatever. You do the best you can when you take the shot. But then in post, you have that freedom to get it right where you want it.
Yeah, and I think that when we offer up the idea of cropping, I guess, so I'm a trial and error student. That's kind of the way I've learned my whole life. So, I run into the wall and I realize, well, I can't run through the wall. I should probably go around it. That's my basic learning thing. I don't know if it was my mom didn't tell me no a lot, or if I didn't get in trouble for failure enough when I was a kid, but I basically learned that failure was learning. And for me, the cropping and learning to do that is I failed to get it the way I wanted it when I was out in the field. So I'm using the cropping to learn more about how to shoot the right frame. Now, the more you do this, the more you look at how the power of an image is stronger, or the composition is stronger by cropping, the more you will see it in your camera as you go. Mm-hmm. So, to say, no, I won't crop now, to me, I'm like, you're just, well, good, then don't learn. Because that's the way I look at it, is that you're just saying that you're taking a hard road for no reason. And we have been taught that. The fact that we're all here today and we're alive and is good doesn't mean that we weren't taught some things that were wrong. And so, I learned the same thing, and I just realized that I could see how the power of the image was different as when I cropped it or I changed it. And then I started to think, well, now when I'm out shooting, maybe I should frame this and try different framings and see how that works as well. So I think that we have the tools, you should use them. So that's why I suggest to try the different crops and something like this image, and I didn't put this in Photoshop. I have a couple here that we're gonna put in Photoshop and show a few things. I think this could be a stronger image of her best friend here, if it was cropped a little bit. But we're not, a lot of times we get images, especially like people who are learning, and that's why we're talking about cropping, in the beginners, that Nancy's not a beginner photographer. I mean, she submits to the beginner group, but we've seen her work, and her work is very good. Mm-hmm. She's got a good eye, and, but I think that it's bold of her to submit to the beginner group because she wants to learn more things and try different things. So I guess breaking it down for you, Nancy, I'd say it's a wonderful shot, and that already. To try what Mike and I are talking about, try cropping and try different things that you don't think you'd ever do with the different tools, and see if the image just suddenly jumps out at you more. And then that, hey, when I'm out there shooting, maybe I should try that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very cool.
Very good. All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Nancy, for submitting. And I love your dog. That's a very cute dog. All right. Next up is we're moving to the regular group. Both groups were open for April, by the way, the theme. Cool. And next up is Millen.
Ah, cool. Yeah, I should probably mention, too, that with the dog shot from Nancy, Springer Spaniels, you're lucky you got any photo that was actually where the dog wasn't just a blur. So
they are active dogs, yes.
Yeah, super active. So Millen is another person who submitted, and Millen, remember, not too long ago was only in the beginner group, and now he's kind of submitting to the regular group on a regular basis, and his images, I think, have really come a long way. Mm-hmm. I like the artistic level of this image. Obviously, always beautiful to shoot flowers and in the spring, especially. Millen's from another part of the world, of course. He's not from here in the United States, so he affords us a view to his beautiful part of the world, and it's amazing to always see his images come through. I was just going to read through his notes here. He said he got some nice spring weather. He got, it looks like nature was starting to wake up from its winter sleep, he says. This was in his village for some days, trying to capture some of the spring feelings that nature presented to me. And so with this shot, he was experimenting with composition. And I think you can see, I don't know, Mike, maybe it's just me, but I can kind of see how he's using like the leading lines of one of the branches
the branch on the left. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to imagine for the average photographer who would walk up on this scene and see these beautiful flowers, that actually it's a complex scene. There's a lot there's a lot going on here. Yeah. And so Millen trying to tackle this is excellent, because I think, for most of us, that would be a difficult task.
It is. And even I will openly admit I have issues with flowers, because when I go to shoot them, they're always beautiful and it's gorgeous. But then I'm never happy with my composition, really, because it's about getting the right number of flowers in the right position with the right background and having it all balanced together. And I think we've mentioned Alan before. I did a show with Alan Shapiro a couple weeks ago. He's really good at it. Mm-hmm. And he just said, during the show, he was just like, you just got to go out and just do it more and more and more and more and more. And suddenly the flowers will open up to you, and those photos will come. So I think Millen, again, is on the right track. And yeah, Jan mentions the colors in the chat, and I agree that colors are gorgeous here. So keep it up, Millen. I love to see all of your work, man.
Yeah, well done, and awesome for tackling what is a complex scene in my mind, my opinion. Absolutely. All right. Up next is, I'm sure he's submitted before, but I'm not positive. William Alexander.
Yes.
Is this image, and he says, "Ode to the porta pit."
Porta potties. Yeah. I thought this was a funny image. There was a couple of funny images in there. I love his the whimsical, let's put the sun right behind it and give it a halo. That's just all excellent. I think if you really wanted to go over the top, William, I would suggest maybe getting a little lower, and then that way you could still get the long shadow idea and the bright sun and the sky behind there. But what it would do is bring your horizon out of the middle. We try to bring our horizon into the lower third if we possibly can on an image like this, because what happens is we get too much of a push-pull fight between the top of the image and the bottom of the image when we put our horizon in the middle, and we don't have a good symmetrical reflection to deal with. So our eyes just tend to just like freak out and go all over the place. Which might be appropriate for this image. So, being that it is the porta potty that's lit up, and but yeah,
that'd be one of the best porta potty pictures ever taken.
I think he could probably sell this.
You might be able to, yeah.
He might go to this company and say, our porta potties are heavenly or something. I don't know, but just a suggestion there. What that does is it's going to take either the foreground down a notch and order the things in your photo a little bit better for the viewer to kind of latch onto. So when we keep a balanced or a targeted shot, there's too much fighting in the image. We want to look at the sky, and then we want to look at that shadow, and then we look at the porta potty, and we want to look at the sky again. Mm-hmm. And really, if you got lower and you made that horizon lower, you could still get the long shadow coming at you. The porta potty is then going to have this ominous look to it because it's going to look like a tower, and then you're going to get that same halo. So it just takes what you have here, this idea that you have, and kind of pushes it over the top a little bit. And so I highly suggest in your quest for porta potty shots that give that a try and see what you think.
Yeah, I guess you can find a good shot anywhere if you can find a porta potty and make it
that's right.
A good image.
Awesome job.
Yes, thanks for submitting, William. Up next is this image from Ebenezer. Again, I'm not going to try and say your last name because I will butcher it.
Jayakumar.
There you go.
I got it.
That's probably as good as I would get it.
That's as close as
he says, titled it, Gaze into the Life. It's a macro photograph of a flower, obviously.
Yeah, I think this is a good. I think it's a good attempt. I think it's a little questionable on where I'm supposed to look in this image. And I don't know. Mike, you can chime in on this and tell me what you think.
To me, it looks. I don't see anything sharp at all. It seems a little too. I would like the center maybe to be in focus. What's going on there to give me that as my focus point, maybe?
Yeah, and we just talked about this. Flowers are a pain in the ass, basically. Yeah. I mean, and so that's this is where it gets hard, is that, in our images, colors are beautiful. Maybe you go for an abstract here and blur out the whole image. You gotta, so photos are an interesting thing, and we're going to talk about this in a photo that's coming up. You can't be sort of an idea. So you don't get like kind of symmetrical or there, kind of the horizon is kind of straight. With photos, you have to be very matter of fact about certain things. And again, we tell you these things so you can break the rules. And this is fine, but this is just all rudimentary stuff. And for me, looking at the image, it's pretty colors. I like the colors. I like the idea. Yeah. But I would like to see something more from it. It wouldn't be an image that I would say purchase, but it might be an image that I would purchase if it's got to have something that draws me in that's more than just the color. So maybe it's the treatment of the image. Maybe we go for like a pastel or an oil painting kind of look with it to kind of, I've seen some blurred images that look really amazing that are abstract. So this is kind of an abstract image. It's kind of symmetrical. It's kind of, but it's not any one thing that sticks out to me. Right. And so that's what you need to.
Because you could have even gone to the point, because it almost has that, if it wouldn't be for the red, obviously the flower's red, but you couldn't do anything with that. That feel of Star Trek, not Star Trek. Good gosh, I'm so sorry. I mixed up these two. Star Wars, where Jabba the Hutt was going to put them down into that sand thing.
Yes. Sarlacc pit. Yeah.
It has that kind of look to it, except for this is, pretty colors.
Yeah, and it does make your imagination go a little bit, and I think that's cool. But abstract is, so generally abstract is like something where you can't figure out what it is. That's what draws you to it. It's beautiful, but you can't figure it out. That's abstract. It's abstract. So this is beautiful, but I know what it is.
Right.
And so you're not there. You're not quite there yet. I hope that makes sense. But you could try a technique in here, Ebenezer, like focus stacking, which is you can do it without an expensive amount of equipment. It's not easy to do, but it's the in Photoshop you can actually take different frames of focus, and Photoshop will figure out what's in focus and it'll attach them all together into one frame, so you can extend your depth of field. So you could get those little the little parts of the flower out front, or at least maybe the parts in the back in focus. I like the softness of the little feathery things in front.
Yeah, I do too. The back is where I was wanting it to be in focus.
Exactly. There you go. So, because that's kind of like that's kind of like the backdrop. But yeah, I think it's a cool photo. I just think keep pushing it, keep trying different things, and see what you come up with.
All right, thanks, Ebenezer. And he submits almost every month, so keep submitting, Ebenezer.
Awesome.
All right, up next, and this is I think this is a first-time submitter, Edward McEwin.
Yes.
I don't remember if you submitted before. I'm sorry, I don't remember you submitted before. And he says, in Orlando on a rainy day with Brian Peterson's workshop, everyone was shooting something, and Brian walked over to a mailbox, and I said, how funny it would be to see someone come out. He said, go for it. He turned quickly and with a surprised look, and I shot at a slower shutter to get the motion. I then shot his arm and hand. Photoshop did the rest. The image means that a serious workshop about photography does not always have to be about f-stop and shutter speed. I'm not familiar with Brian Peterson. Do you know, does that name anything to you?
I don't know Brian either. I want to screen share with you, Mike.
Okay. And I'm assuming that is actually maybe Brian in the photo there. And
I don't know. So I agree with everything that he said there as far as but I think workshops and photo walks.
Two different things.
Two different things. If you're at a workshop, you're really there to learn. Now, can they be fun? Yeah, they really should be. I mean, if you're at a workshop and it's not fun, and you might be at the wrong workshop.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Workshops should be fun. If you're at a photo walk, by all means, the whole idea of a photo walk is just to be as crazy as possible within, obviously not causing trouble, but, having fun with it, right? But a workshop, you're really, when you sign up for a workshop, if you get to a point in a workshop where you're like, this guy's too serious, this I can't deal with this anymore, you're at the wrong workshop. You need to be like, okay, I learned that that's not the workshop for me.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to leave that there because I don't know this gentleman and I don't know any of that stuff. But let's go to the photo and let's talk about the photo a little bit because I like his idea of, a fun photo, a bunch, all of this. And he actually did use shutter speed and f-stop in order to do this. So let's talk about it. I'm going to screen share. Let me get it going here. Share screens. And we're doing 3, 2, 1, go. And there we go. You should be seeing my screen.
Yep.
Gosh, I hope it works. All right.
Yeah, it worked. For me, I pressed the wrong button at first.
Oh, that's all right. As long as the viewers are caught up with us. All right, so I just want to talk about, so what he did, and this is the problem I've been having with my mouse. So this makes me wonder if my mouse is freaking out too. I just zoomed in and it all of a sudden zoomed out on its own. Yeah. So I'm just going to go really slow. So he edited the hand in. Compositing is always fun to do, but it's very difficult to get it right. And immediately I was kind of detracted from the image, and it's fun because the hand just looks like it was chopped off and pasted on. Mm-hmm. So what I would do is, if you like doing this kind of stuff, which it seems like you do, Edward, I love doing it myself, and this is fun. So learning a few little editing techniques can really make your photo more believable. So I did some editing, and what I did is I took the hand out. First of all, I wanted to show you that you could I could just take that hand out if I wanted to. Yeah. I just wanted to reverse engineer your hand out. And so then what I did is I made a copy of your hand that you did, and
turned it.
So we look at the original, this is the original. Which I can't do them side by side, unfortunately. Yeah. But it's just, I stretched it back to its normal kind of look a little bit, but it's kind of stretched out. But all I did was I stretched this out right here around the wrist. I'm going to try to zoom in again. I stretched that out. Then I added a little bit of darkening in there to make it look like it was coming out of a shadow. Mm-hmm. And then I added a little bit of motion blur. Because he's blurred, if a hand was popping out at you, that would be blurred as well.
Yeah.
So the suspension of disbelief here, when you're compositing images and to just kind of sell your image, and we could get into crop and angle and all that kind of stuff, but this is just kind of if you want it to make it believable, you have to make your edit believable, first of all. And then on top of that, we keep this kind of unfixed. If the photo's too perfect, people won't believe that how'd you do this, right? Yeah. They won't get any of that. So I just wanted to show you that, we look at the before, and the hand was chopped off here to the side. All I did was basically, and your edit would be much quicker because you would just basically blur this part out, or I used, and I'll tell you exactly how I did this. I just used a layer up here on top, and I darkened. I put my paintbrush on darken, and I put my opacity down to around 12, which was probably too little or too much. And I just painted in so that it would darken that layer in the back. And you can see it kind of adds every swipe adds just a little bit, because I don't want to add a lot at once. I want this to be very gradual as I edit in the darkness created by the inside of the mailbox, right? Mm-hmm. And then if you overpaint, you can go to your erase brush, and you can put that on a very soft edge as well. So I'll go hardness about 43. And then I'll just make sure that we're not painting anywhere up on the mailbox where we shouldn't. Like down here on his hand, we might not want to paint all of that. We want to make it believable. Like
there you go.
The hand's casting a little bit of a shadow. Okay, so just little edits like that.
That right there looks pretty good.
It can put it over the top, right, and really make it a believable image. Like people would see this and be like, "Whoa, how do you do that?" Photoshop did do the rest, and good, you're having fun with it. I think ultimately what I learned though from your post was maybe this wasn't the workshop for you. I don't know if I'm freaking out to the point where I'm like, I'm going to joke around and have fun, which is, it's one thing to have fun. Don't get me wrong. but if you're there to learn, to, give the teacher respect, and you're there to learn his way or their way, his or her way, whoever it is. And, I know when I'm giving a workshop, I take note if I'm being too serious. I try to lighten up a little bit. But I also don't like, the class clown showing up at my workshop. Distracting everybody. I don't know if Edward was doing this. Who knows? I don't really care about any of that.
I didn't get that from it. I thought maybe they just had a lighthearted moment for a while. So
just having fun, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And I'm just basically wanted to offer up a little help on showing him how he can kind of take it over the edge a little bit and dial that in. And compositing is so fun. I'm telling you, once you get into it, it's very addictive to take some of your photos and put them together and do all that.
Well, that little quick thing you did there made a huge difference. So hopefully Edward will watch this and he'll see that, from that to what you just had, that's a world difference, and you did it fairly quick. Now you're more experienced at this than I am. I don't know about Edward, but you're more experienced than I am. So it may take me longer. But that quick thing you did made a big difference. And even if Edward, just with that shot, if I look at it again back at his original, if he had slid that arm over a little bit more to the left, it would have been a little bit better, because then you wouldn't have it just hanging in the air.
Yeah. So originally when I was going to edit this, I was actually going to put it like on this edge right here and just move it over. But then my mind said to me, like, well, we're trying to make this like a hand is really coming out of there. And he had the positioning good if someone was trying to like reach their hand up, that would give them room to kind of cram their head in there and do it. So, I was really trying to sell that part of it. Plus I like the angle, the juxtaposition between the hand and him made it more believable. So I didn't go with that. I basically did the blurred out thing and kept his positioning right, because I did like where he had the hand. So.
All right, Edward, thank you for submitting it. And he did it through the website. He didn't do it through Facebook, so you can submit through there. Yeah.
Cool. All right, we'll stop sharing here, Mike.
All right. Back. And up next is this image from Darrell Harrington, who used to submit quite a bit. I know he's been busy and out there doing whatever. And so every once in a while he does still get to submit, and we're always fortunate when he does. So this is Darrell's image. He says, let's see, I took a trip to Maine this weekend to try and get back into posting into the contest. I'm sure he did it for other reasons besides just entering the contest. Most of the day brought high clouds, but I got lucky in the morning and got a small break. This is a 4.5-minute exposure of Portland Head Lighthouse.
Yeah, the Portland Head Light. We were just there when we took our Arcadia trip in 2016, and I took a bunch of photographers with me, and we did the same thing. We camped out here and got some photos. This is probably the most photographed lighthouse on the East Coast, I would say, maybe in all of the United States. So if you put in Portland Head Light, and you put that into Google, you'd be like 1 million photos. And so the very first thing I want to say to Darrell is kudos on being patient and getting something different from what I see comes out of this area quite a bit. A lot of people shoot it from the other side because the rocks on the other side are much more interesting, but that's the rocks. And when we were there, we went right to the other side and took a bunch of shots, and I said to my friends, I said, I want to walk around and see what it looks like from the other angle. And I really liked this angle better because it gave a sense of the lighthouse being more remote. Because on the other side, you kind of see like a bunch of stuff going on. You can see a parking lot. You can see, you got to do a lot of weird, you got to compose it. There's only one way to really compose it, unless you climb out on the rocks and you're kind of, you have to be an idiot to get a different angle here. So this side is great. There's a big cliff right here. He's standing at the top of a pretty steep drop off, even though you can climb down it. It is a pretty steep climb down. People were climbing down there. So Mike, I have this one in the editor as well.
Oh, good.
And we were talking about doing cropping earlier, and I want to show Darrell what I mean when this is a perfect example to show exactly what I mean with how cropping can change the whole image. So
yeah, I can't wait to see this because I like this image the way it is.
I do too, and I want to address that too. So let's we're going to share the screen now. Here we go. I'll get my Skype back to make sure you're seeing it. Okay, you're seeing it.
Yep.
Cool. So first off, let me just say, gorgeous image, and immediately you've got the light, you've got the color, you've got the technique of 4.5 minutes. All of that is amazing. But when I look at this image, I have a fight going on in my head, unfortunately. And the fight that's going on in my head is this: I look at the water, and I see the water down below, and I look at all those rocks, and I like the way that line is and I see this big rock in the lower hand corner, which draws a lot of my attention into the lower rock. It's where you put your name, which is good. Makes me wonder if you put your name there because it gets a lot of attention. Subconsciously, you didn't know that, but it is basically that part of the photo is fighting with the beautiful sky that you did and the beautiful lighthouse. And I can show you that you basically have two images here. You've got a lighthouse with a sea that looks amazing, and you've got a lighthouse with a sky, and they're balanced exactly the same. So the sky and the sea are duking it out, and no one's going to win. No one's winning. It's just a constant battle between a gorgeous, cool-looking sea and what am I talking about? Sea and sky. But what's the subject here? It's the lighthouse, right? So we have to balance that battle between the sea and the sky. They're fighting too much. Yes, you captured a beautiful image, but you captured too much of it. And that's a big problem I see with a lot of photos out there. And there's I know a lot of folks don't know the difference, but it is the difference, trust me, between selling a photo and just having people like it on Facebook, which unfortunately, I'm sorry to mention this to everybody, but likes and comments mean nothing. You should never pay attention to them, ever. It doesn't matter who it's coming from. They're just opinions they're empty shells. So if you get 1,000 likes, if it goes viral, doesn't mean anything. Just means that people found it a curiosity. I can show you 1,000 cat photos that have gotten a million views over your photo, and that sucks because I see it every day. This is just going to help you see the power of the image. Just bump it up just a very little bit, and it's so easy to do. I'm going to click on the crop tool, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take your sea out of the photo. And I'm not taking it out because you still captured this beautiful water, but I'm going to lessen its impact on the sky, and now I'm going to give it an order. I'm going to give the sea and the sky to your lighthouse. That's going to be the order, and when I'm done, this is what you end up with. And it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I do like that a lot better.
You print this and you put it on the wall. This makes a big difference. Now, there's another thing that I did here, and I changed the crop from a standard crop, which is just a full frame 3x4 or 5x7 crop, to an ultra wide crop, which is called a cinematic crop, and that just makes everything more epic. So you captured this epic scene, and just by doing that crop, you've even made it more epic. So just a friendly piece of advice: always think about doing this, keeping that horizon. The only time we want a horizon in the dead center of our photo is when we're going for symmetry. That's the only time that we want that there. We very rarely want a horizon right in the middle of our photo. And when you go with an ultra-wide crop, then you can actually put this just slightly off the center. Like it's not really a third, I don't want to say, but if you divided everything up into quarters, it might be more like just off the quarter a little bit, half of a third. But that allows now to balance the image so that you don't have that rock isn't fighting you in the corner. You still have this beautiful, from the water, this trailing line that leads to the lighthouse. You have the beautiful sky burst. You're not. And when
it's a gorgeous image. Yeah.
Well, you say to yourself, Mike, when you look at this, are you missing that rock?
Nope, not at all. Not at all. No, once you started talking, I knew what you were going to do. But prior to that, I love that image that he took. I love the image that Darrell took. But you're right, that rock and the sea down below were fighting for my attention. And as soon as you gave me that crop, it's like, oh, I like this even better.
And sometimes we don't know why. Yeah. This is, so this is the thing. We like it better and we don't know why. But it sometimes just comes down to our brain isn't battling so much.
Well, and I think if I had to choose, so if I looked at Darrell's original image and I'll go, are you still going to screen share? Or are you
yeah,
done?
I went to the original
So
image.
if I look at his original image and you saying do I need that seascape down there in that rock, or do what you did with AD did, where you crop that out, and is that a more powerful image? Because what I like is the sky and the lighthouse. I don't need as much of the water. I love how he did the long exposure and flattened out the water and smoothed out the water. I love that. I still get that with this crop, but I've now added more power to the lighthouse and to the sky.
And he was definitely on the right. So he was on the right path by doing the long exposure. You do mellow out the reflections and the harshness in the water, because water can be very harsh, especially with the sun bouncing off it, and it can detract from the image. So generally when we take pictures of the sea or a water, we either want it glass smooth or we want to make it fuzzy, but we don't want it right in the middle because it tends to be grainy and noisy, and it demands attention because of that. And Plus, unless
you're doing like where the sea is hitting up against it and giving it sprays and everything, unless you're wanting to capture that, it's going to have too much detail. All that water, all those little ripples are going to have too much detail, and you don't need that. So, Darrell did a great job here with that long exposure. Yes, all right, awesome. So one more image. We'll go back to this. One more image. The last image for tonight is, and he was out there earlier. I don't know if he's still out there now, but this one from Greg Crosdale. Yep. He said, Domino's Farm, world headquarters of Domino's Pizza. Wow. It's an office park, animal park, and art installation. The juxtaposition of the art and animals is somehow suitable for Ann Arbor, Michigan. However, I always think of post-apocalyptic settings. And he kind of gave it that feel with the way he processed this.
Yeah, so for sure.
I'm not familiar with this spot at all. Does that tower actually lean?
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know either. And we talked about, and so I throw this out there. Greg's a traveling partner of mine, so he's one of the guys that was at the Portland headlight with me when we were out there, and he went to Yellowstone with us. And we're planning on doing another trip next year to British Columbia or someplace, we're not really sure. When I first saw this, Greg, I don't read, you know me, when I look at stuff, I don't usually read the descriptions first. I look at it and kind of just take it in for what it is. And I was really confused by the image. I was like, is that a giant feeder or what is that? That's weird. And then I don't know. I think it does lean, Mike. I think this is a sculpture of some sorts that they have out there. I don't know what. And I think that's part of it for me, Greg, is that I think it's interesting, but it needs to be more featured somehow. It seems to be a little bit more. It's like targeted right now, and I can't really see what it is, and I'm not sure what I'm looking at. I thought maybe this was an old photo you dug out of somewhere, to be honest with you. So I love the processing. You definitely got me with that. When I read down below it and I saw that you had post-processed this, I was like, oh, okay. I thought this was a film shot that you did, because I knew that he had done some of that stuff years ago. But yeah, I like the photo. I think it's interesting, but I'm not sure that the composition is winning me over all that much. I think maybe Greg's, he's like me. I think maybe his left brain may have taken over a little bit more than his right brain on this one.
Well, I like the feel he gave to it. There's I guess that's a buffalo coming in, just barely his head. I'm assuming that's his head coming in on the right-hand side. Yeah. That would have been nice to get that one out and fairly easy to get out. But overall, he says it really does lean. So even if it didn't, he might have been trying to give that power, but he said it does actually lean. So he's on Facebook, so I know you're not seeing his his thing. So he's out there, and he says it does lean. So that's why he left it leaning.
That's cool. Yeah, I wouldn't question that so much as just it seems like it's a very targeted image. So it seems like it's like, it's very in the center, but you know how we said before, like things are kind of. So this is like it kind of wants to be symmetrical. The image overall wants to be like, perpendicular. It wants to be this, but it's kind of just a little off. And so I guess it's in that gray area where I'm not sure if it's supposed to be off. And that's why when you said, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be crooked, it's a great thing, because that's your first response. You didn't know. And so, Greg, that's kind of like you got a real raw response there to it. So that just says, I need to think about the composition a little bit and what I want to do. I don't know. So he said he took this with his 6300, which is a Sony cam. Is a great cam. And processes it in Snapseed on the iPad, which I love the ability to be able to just send my photos to my phone or my iPad and process them with mobile apps sometimes for a different look. I do it quite a bit, actually, to get a different feel and try different things. So yeah, I think it just comes down to composition again, man.
He meant it to be a little disturbing.
It is. I think he could have gone maybe even farther with it, though.
Yeah.
So kind of let your freak flag fly a little bit more. I think that's my suggestion. Sometimes I don't really have a direction for you to go in, but I see people go down the road a little bit, and then it's like they question themselves, so they only do it a little. Feel free to go overboard, man, and just try to be crazy with it. I think that you could have a lot of fun if this is really weird. I mean, I read the description, and of course I was taken into it after I read the description, but like Greg knows, we don't always have a narrative that that we do, because we write about it on our blogs and stuff. And I'd be the first to tell Greg, I'd be like,
do a blog post on this. Yeah,
absolutely. Write a story on this place and use these shots like this are perfect. But it's like, if we're going for, a sellable piece of art or something like that, if that's your goal, then I think you got to be more disturbing than this is from the other things I've seen selling out there. You got to, cat photos. So
well, he's got buffalo. He's got buffalo.
He's got buffalo.
All right, that was the last one for this month. Next show we'll go over the second half of the images for April. So until then, let's talk a little bit about UAD. You over on the creators.com, which is my webpage.
Yeah, when I can keep my camera and stuff running, I'm over there.
So what you do every week, you do a video, right? And so if I'm a Patreon of yours, which I am, I get to view that. And last week, I think last week you did Aurora, right? The HDR.
I did all sorts of weird things last week.
You did some weird things, yeah. So what's coming up?
So I think I streamed like 4 times or 3 times or something like that. So I got my shop built. I've been experimenting with. I retired from music, and I've had this discussion with you before. People come up to me and they're like, "How can you live without playing your guitars? And how can you?" And I'm like, because I focus on photography and I focus on 3D printing, and my creative juices are flowing. Don't worry about it. And I'm one of those people that, as long as I'm creating, I'm happy. And so what I had the idea was, why not share some of the other creative things that I do in my shop when I woodwork, or I do the 3D modeling and that kind of stuff. So I set up a camera out there and just did an impromptu stream, and I shared it only with my patrons, so that they get to watch that sort of thing. And hopefully it inspires them to try some of this stuff. Think about getting into 3D printing, or try, woodworking or some of this other stuff. And then on Monday night we had technical difficulties on Monday night, so we ended up moving to Wednesday night, and we did do a segment on Aurora HDR and how I use it in my workflow. So we talked a little bit about Lightroom and Aurora HDR, and then Luminar, of course, in processing, and kind of how I use it. I think I use it differently than a lot of people do. So maybe that was, maybe that opened a lot of people's eyes into how I would use it. I also talked about photomatics a little bit, and I said on there, as I do on all of the broadcasts that I do, people who are patrons get to pick what I do streams about. So you can make a suggestion like, I want to see more HDR. Show me how to do this. Show me how. and that's what I make the videos on. So if you think about it, for $1 a month, you can request to have someone make videos for you.
And I was one of the ones who was voting for you doing something in Aurora, and I couldn't make it live because I don't know what was going on Wednesday night. Maybe I was exercising or whatever. But you recorded it, so I actually am partially way through that. I think I got to the part where you just brought into Aurora, and we're doing the combination. Cool. of your 9 shots that you're bringing in. So I think I got more to go through it, but you record it for me, so I'm going to watch the rest of it. So if you can't make it live, it's nice to watch live because you can interact like you can now. Where Gary and Jan and Greg and Nancy and everybody that's out there now, you can interact. So if you watch live, and I think Jan actually watches some of your stuff live too. You can interact. Yep. But if you don't, you can always watch it after the fact. So if you want to follow AD over there, thecreators.com, over here on Patreon, you got also the link. If you go to explorographer.com, I think you have the link there too.
Yeah. You go up to learn photography or something. It's in there somewhere. So, but yeah, it's a fun little community, and the fact that you can interact during the show, but you can also watch the videos and ask questions after the show and post them in the community, and I go through and I answer all of those questions, and I'm ready to, I make sure everybody who posts, they get a reply, and I'm very, I'm there when people ask for help and whatnot, and that's the thing. If you don't, but that content rarely gets past my Patreon page, so I probably won't release a lot of the making stuff in my garage and that sort of stuff. And it's kind of behind the scenes too. I talk a lot about the equipment that I use when I shoot, and you never know what's going to happen on a live stream. Like I think some people got to hear me sing on if they watch the live stream, and that can be good or bad depending on your opinion. But you never know what's going to happen. So it's a lot of fun.
Very good. So if you want to follow AD and subscribe, just go over to his website, explorographer.com, and there's a link there to Patreon, or just go to thecreators.com. For this show, if you're late, if you came in late and want to catch it, we're on YouTube, of course, or you can go over to, if you want to see all the places, go over to JPEG to RAW, go over to subscribe, and then scroll down. And the photo review show is on iTunes. You can subscribe through iTunes, video large, video small, or YouTube or Vimeo. Or we actually have an RSS feed too for both of those. It is only video in this case because of what we do. I don't know if it translates very well to audio, but you have a number of choices to subscribe to it there. So until we come back, we'll talk about this in post show. Until we come back for next show, keep shooting. Good night, everybody.
Night.